Hello everyone and welcome to Scarecrow Miniature Painting. I'm Steven, and before we get into the seventh part of this series of painting these two tieflings, I do want to go over a couple of things that is going on with the channel. When you look at the description, you may see a new hyperlink for our Patreon that did just get approved today, and it is up and ready to go as we speak. A couple of things that are going to go on with the Patreon. Six or seven different membership levels, starting with backstage, behind the scenes type things, seeing how I set everything up, how I pick my colors, everything like that, all the way to discounts to our Etsy store. If you have used our links that are in our descriptions and gone to our Etsy store, you would see that our prices are fairly high. That is to counteract the mass fees that Etsy does have. Now, Etsy's a great website. A lot of the content creators on there are highly reputable. However, just make sure that you're not buying something for too cheap, because if it is too cheap, it may not be too good. And that's creator to creator. We did just lower our prices on there from $50 to $35. So please give that a check, and let's get on to the highlighting. So as you can see, we've already got our blue tunicked one ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with that blue. Now I'm going to show you the transition we're going to do first. So we started with the deep blue. We're going to move on to ultramarine blue, and then on to crystal blue, and then on to void shield blue. That'll give us our deepest, darkest recesses. And how we're going to do that is we're going to do this bit right here, and the shoulders, that pauldron. We're going to touch a little bit on that pauldron, not much, because if you remember, or that bracer, because if you remember from when we were doing the touch-ups and everything like that, it did have an issue with pulling. And then once we're done with those highlights, we are going to move on to this miniature, specifically the goblin, while we let the blues dry, because once the blues are done drying, we are going to move on to the browns on there. There is a couple browns, now that I'm looking at it, that would get a highlight on the shoulders, top of the bracer, stuff like that. But our zombie was originally colored in green scale. So we're going to then move on to goblin skin, scaly hide, and then a final highlight of jungle green. Now, we are experiencing bad weather here in Missouri. It's predicted to get bad. If the video is cut short, I will give updates in comment sections and everything like that, as well as on our Facebook page, making sure that you all know that we are safe from the storm if it does get that severe. Another thing we're going to be doing after we do that green is we are going to move on to the browns. Now, we started with the leather brown. We will then move on to desert yellow, and then skeleton brown, or skeleton bone, my apologies, with a touch of white at the end, possibly. I'll have to play that one by ear. Now, the next one we're going to do, after that dried, after we transition over to this figure again, is that gray on the body. We're going to do the shoulders, the little bits that are going to be touching light, and we're going to be doing that with Necromancer. We started off with Necromancer Cloak. We're going to transition over to Wolf Gray, and then we're going to transition over to matte white. And with that, let's begin our painting. Now, if you remember the last video that we did with the highlighting, you want to start off your transitions with the base color and your next lightest highlight mixed. So we're going to take our deep blue, we're going to put that right there. We're going to take our ultramarine blue, give it a quick shake. Blues, you really want to make sure you shake really good. Blues and greens, they tend to hold the pigmentation, I would say, a little weird. So we're going to put that on there. And we're going to wet our brush first. We're just going to pull some of that blue from both over. Trying to get a little bit more of that aquamarine blue over. I might have to add a little bit more aquamarine. To this mixture. There we go. That is what I'm looking for. It's a little bit lighter, but not by much. And then, with typical Scarecrow Miniatures fashion, we take our water, we thin that down, and we mix it up to where it's not a wash, but it's easily malleable. So we're going to take that now, and we're going to lightly move that down. Now that one did become more of a wash, so let's see if we can't get some of that pigmentation on here. There we go. That is what I'm looking for. A little bit more of the pigmentation. We're going to bring that down and around. So as you can see, I'm going to try getting it in the video. It is a little bit lighter. Not by much, and that's the goal that we're looking for with this one, is that we don't want it too light. With the shoulders and the back of the neck, we're just going to hit where the light would rest on his shoulder blades. Up to his torso. We're going to pull that down to about his chest. Now, with the bracer, or with the sleeve, we're going to pull that in a similar fashion. And with this sleeve, we're going to do the very top. And that's all we got to do on that one. With this bracer, we are going to do a thin line across the middle there. And then this bracer, we are going to actually do the entire top. We are going to angle that to go down a little bit, not by much, like so. So, we got that mixture down. Now we are going to do pure ultramarine. I am probably going to use several palettes on this one, just because of how many highlights we will be doing, but that's not an issue. If it turns out that we have too many highlights or not enough, or we don't have enough palettes, I have ways around that. So you want to take it, I usually do highlighting areas like this, where it is almost as if his knee is out. I take it from the bottom up. A lot of people take it from the top down to give that lighting source a little bit more shine. I tend to, like I said, I tend to just do bottom up. Now we're going to do similar to how we did with the skin tone on the bracer. We're going to leave a little bit on the bottom there. Same with on this arm sleeve. We're not going to pull it all the way down to where it was. We're just going to leave a little bit there. The back of the shoulder, we are going to do a thin line between both and move that into the chest. Like so. So we're going to let that dry. And we're going to mix up our next mixture, which is going to be crystal blue with the aquamarine. Now, like I said, you do gotta really mix these up at times just because of the pigmentation of the blue. So, let's get our crystal blue down there. And this highlight should really show up a lot better than that prior one. That prior one looked almost eerily similar. Nope, no paint. I'm sorry for sticking my tongue out at the camera, guys. It's a habit for me to use my tongue as a somewhat natural brush cleaner. But this next round of painting is going to be almost, it should be a more clear highlight than the last. And like I said, we're going to just take that from the bottom down because we're going to utilize the space that we have left. Now with the shoulders, we're just going to try doing a thin line. Up and around the neck. Back down to the chest. This bracer, we're going to take it to about right there. We're going to curl it down a little bit more on both sides so that it has that somewhat natural highlight. This one, we are going to do a line at the top because we're reaching our max capacity we can do when it comes to the highlighting of this blue. But we're just taking thin lines across there. So we may not even do the crystal blue, or the void shield, I should say, because we're doing the crystal blue now. Correct? Yes. But we'll see. It may not be on all of them. It may just be on the brightest one. But we will see once we get to that stage, and we're almost to that stage. I'm just pulling that up and around on that knee. As you can see, that is already showing up as a great highlight. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's going to happen once we get to the stage where we have nothing else to highlight? How are we going to do that? It's a great question. So if there's nothing else to highlight, then you don't do nothing on it, in my personal opinion. You always want to try leaving some room for a little bit of highlight, regardless if it's pulling it all the way down or not. So we're going to move on to our final mixture on this palette. And that's going to be the Void Shield. And the aquamarine, or the crystal blue. So we're going to take that Void Shield, we're going to move it over there. I'm going to drop that down. I'm going to take the remainder of this crystal blue, and I'm just going to mix that up right there. And I'm going to take a little dot of that. Taking it once again from the bottom. Going up and around. Taking a little dot there. Because we're almost done with these. I'm trying to leave as little highlight as possible. And as you see, with this one now, I'm really just doing the neck. A little dot on the very top. And a little dot on that bracer. If I can get it to... There we go. So, that's what we got going so far. And I love that transition because you see that knee sticking out more. And it gives a natural transition. So, I have to thin this down real quick. And then, once we have it thinned down, we'll move on to painting the remaining highlights. For this one. And there we have it. We got all of our highlights done on him. So, now we're going to take him off. We're going to let him fully dry. And we're going to get his buddy. I had a feeling I had touched one of the paints with that. And we're going to go on to the goblin next. With that being said, we need our green skin. just going to do a dot of that. Next we need our goblin green. And I typically do a 50-50 mix whenever I am doing highlights. But sometimes, for instance with this one, you actually want to go a little bit more than 50-50 with the lighter shade. So it actually somewhat formulates on the paint itself, but you don't lose that coloring of the original. So now, just like usual, we thin that down. We take a little bit of that paint. Hold on, I'll fix the camera. There we go. I'm going to take a little bit of that paint, and I'm going to touch up every nook and cranny that would have exposed coloring from the sun, such as his arms, his elbow, his hands, his head. And when we get into the object source lighting, you'll see why we're doing it like that as well. Okay, so now we are going to move on to pure goblin green. And now we are going to add a drop of water to our pure goblin green. We're going to mix that up. We're going to take a dollop of that. And we're going to do his hands first, up his arm. We're not going to go all the way up his arm. Just like with this hand, we're not going to go all the way up his hand, but we are going to go around his hand all the way. His elbow here, we are going to do to about there. His little arm. Spot, we're going to go to about right there. His shoulder we'll do from there. And his head, we're going to do the very top around the brow line. So when I did the head, I did from the brow line around. So what we just did is we went from here around. So now we move on to our next darkest color, or brightest color I should say, which would be Scaly Hide. And per usual, we're just gonna mix those two together. We're gonna try to keep as much of that scaly hide as we can. For the pure scaly hide. That's exactly what we want to see right there. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that paint. Now, if you remember, a little too thick. Bear with me. You just add a drop of water. Just one should do it. There we go. Okay. So if you remember when we did the hand, that's his left hand, we went around his hand. We're going to do the same thing there. Now this hand we're going to go up about right there. This shoulder we're going to turn our brush around and we're going to go to about right there. His head, we're going to go right there, down a little bit. His arm, we're going to do a almost thin, sickly line right there. His elbow, we are going to do from there over to the point. And this is what we got so far with him. He is looking amazing. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about the eyes? We still have the eyes to do. You're right. We do still have the eyes to do. We're going to get to those as well. Maybe not this video, but most likely next. So now we got the pure scaly green to do. So I'm just going to take a drop of water and I'm going to move what I have left of the pure scaly green over. And with how thin that is, it more than likely will be almost a wash. But with this highlight, I mean, that's pretty fine in my opinion. So, start with this hand. We'll go from his hand to right there. We're going to do there. We're going to do right there. Right there. I'm going to try to get as much on that shoulder as I can. Now, with the head, we're almost to the point where we're just doing the very top. That is what we got so far. He is looking amazing, in my personal opinion. So now we have our final highlight color mixture that we're going to do for this guy. And that's going to be the jungle green. So we're going to put a little bit of jungle green here. I know we're reaching the 30-minute mark that we usually set aside. However, with us almost being done with the zombie, we are going to be moving it to a little bit later video. By later video, what I mean is we are going to be focusing on this zombie right now. We are going to finish him up and make sure that everyone knows how the process went. So the mixture is already exactly how I want it. So we're going to just take that. Ooh, no, it's not. It's a little too... There we go. Let's put a little bit. It was a little too thin down. We're going to add just a little bit more of that jungle green to it. We're going to mix up what we can with the pure to get that highlight. Like that. And we're going to take the very tip of our brush. We're going to just take it, place it across the hand there. We're going to just take just the very top of that. And there we have it so far. I am going to add some new jungle green in there because of the fact that it kind of, the median didn't mix well. And what's happening is it is thinning itself before we can even apply it. Turning it almost into a natural wash. And I'm looking more for the consistency of paint to where that pigment can stick. So now we're moving on to the jungle green, and this is the final highlight that we have. So we're just gonna do one quick dot on top, one dot on the shoulder, one dot on that, just the very tip of those fingers. Just the top of the hand in there, and one dot there. And there we have it. He is done. We will be doing the eyes in a later video. However, the next video that we're going to be having is going to be doing the browns of this one. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, the wash will take care of a lot of that. Because we're going to have to do a wash before we can do the object source lighting. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. So once we get to that video, we will do those browns. We may only do instead of doing the multiple 5-6 layer like we did on this one, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layer on that one. We may just do the 2 layer, mixing it, and then 1 layer on top, because that's not a lot of brown to actually do that with. The only other spot I really could do it on would be that right there as well, besides the arms. But thank you for watching. Please check out our Patreon, our Etsy shop, our Facebook page. All the links should be in the description below. And then please also like and subscribe to the video. It helps us out as content creators. And we will see you in the next video. Have a great day.